move it to the Housing Authority of Travis County for September 9th, February 9th, 11:09.
Chair John Hernandez.
Here.
Vice Chair Ann Denton.
Here.
Commissioner Eddie Karam.
Here.
Commissioner Wilmer Roberts.
Move the consent agenda item.
Motion is item A through E.
I'd like to make a comment on, it should maybe the January 6th, not January 3rd. The others are on, the January.
That's correct. You're right. It's January.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
correct.
can make change the January 3rd to say January 6th.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
good catch. Okay. I'll amend the motion to appropriate change.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda item, say aye. Public citizen communication.
We don't have any.
The action item, okay,
Yes, so as you know, we are supposed to be submitting a 5-year plan and a 1-year plan. And this is in keeping with our intentions to be in compliance. With being MTW, there are some nuances as it relates to how that works, as it relates to the plan going forward. But because when in 2016, we converted to PDRA, this plan only applies to the HCD program. So you'll be hearing a little bit more about that in MPW and the plan and establishment of the reestablishment of the resident advisory boards and things of that nature. But this is essentially the resolution that needs to accompany the submission of the plan.
My only request would be that once it's adopted, that it's readily accessible on the website.
Sure, and this is pretty basic. But we will be putting that information, we will make sure it's on the website, the plan, the HA plan, the MPW plan, and all the others.
There's been no secret information per se.
No, sir, no.
Okay, so it's enough, there's nothing.
No, sir.
No, Senate Bill 3 addresses a lot of that for a lot of organizations. Making sure that
No, this is pretty standard. I mean, in fact, our recently the adopted strategic plan goes much further than that. So HUD requires us to do it. I don't even know if they don't really even scrutinize it. It's going like they accept it and they acknowledge that it's been submitted. So it's pretty
the
standard.
only reason I brought that up is there's emergency information in there in a lot of plans and we shouldn't have it. I don't think we have emergency, what to do in particular.
No, it's not that kind of plan.
Okay.
It's more of a strategic plan of sorts. Typically, it used to be tied primarily to funding as far as when, your capital funds, when you had that, things like that. So it really is just more of a pretty standard.
we,
You're in 4A.
Okay, not sure. I was in
Yep. Yes, sir.
Make sure y'all correct these dates on this form. They all say February 3rd. Okay.
Make a motion. Everybody can motion.
Yeah, I'll second it for resolution 8.
okay, all in favor of motion for resolution 8? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item B,
Yeah, so I'm gonna allow Steve to do, provide an overview. However, as you all recall, there's been discussion over the course of the last year or more about putting protocols in place. The CDC provided specific guidance that we followed up and through December 31st of last year. We have, for all the period of which you've asked, we've been looking at other agencies, other housing authorities and the like in terms of what they've been doing and how they've been responding to the concern regarding coronavirus and the safety and security of both the employees and their, clients. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Steve and have you provide what has been prepared per your direction.
Thanks, Patrick. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to at least look at this and review it. We're calling this a protocol. We're not calling it a policy or procedure. This is pretty tightly based on what some other housing authorities that we're in touch with are currently doing. In particular, San Antonio, we really kind of leaned on theirs quite a bit to develop this. And this is going to be a dynamic kind of process. Obviously, with the COVID numbers here in Austin, if you check the COVID dashboard like we do every day, I mean, it is getting a lot better pretty quickly. So this is something that we have the intention of modifying on a fairly regular basis moving forward, and it may happen fast. But in any event, the way that this is outlined, again, really mirrors some of these other housing authorities. We have some, obviously the intent of the policy, which Patrick basically went over at the beginning, the protocol, as well as some definitions, some basic information on prevention and employee responsibilities. In that, though, we are intending to require that employees provide proof of vaccination. Again, this is what San Antonio is currently doing, and some other housing authorities as well that we have been in touch with. If you are unvaccinated, you would agree to and be required to undergo mandatory weekly testing. All of this information regarding either vaccinations or tests would be, considered as, and it's not a HIPAA violation in the case to obtain this data, but we treat it obviously as protected health information. We have protocol in here on quarantining and isolating. That's referenced in the definitions of what those mean, and how it's to be treated, including remote work protocol here. And we also have resident program participant interface section at the end of the protocol. And once again, hopefully you've had a chance to review this. And so if you have any questions, comments, etc., I'm here to answer those. And again, this is a dynamic thing. This is obviously going to change.
So the changes would be linked to some sort of objective criteria like the dashboard, or maybe as the city of Boston goes up and down against this.
Yeah, as well as CDC guidance. Yes.
I know you're only going to believe this, but I have comments.
We were anticipating.
First of all, I'm not sure we can actually do this policy you're talking about. I got 3 reasons. One of them is the latest Governor of Texas, April 5th. Have you all read that? where you can do and not do certain things? Can you swear that we're complying with this? Because what I read, it doesn't seem to jive with what he said at all. And then I also have where the Biden administration was shut down by the Supreme Court, and they started backing off. And there's another article from Hopkins about what good the vaccines have really done and the masks have really done, and social distancing really done. It's such a minuscule amount of lives it saves. Well, I don't know why we're coming in so late with a protocol when everyone else is starting to back off. That doesn't make sense to me. Other than the fact that I'm totally opposed to mandating the vaccine, but that's inside.
Well, we're not mandating the vaccine either.
Well,
But we're really not.
when you tell someone you have to get the vaccine or you're gonna get tested every week, if you don't do that, you can get fired. That's mandating in my mind.
Okay.
If I worked there, I should. We can argue the meaning of the word mandate. I'm not meaning to do that. I want to know if we're in compliance with all of these. And I'm not gonna even call them laws because they're not, there hasn't never been a law passed.
Those are executive orders, unless they're approved by the courts or Supreme Court rules on that. It's not really worth a piece of paper that it's written.
Well, the Supreme Court did.
That was on something else.
Yeah, that was on the vaccine mandate, which
Okay,
we're not, that's not what this is.
Okay, and that was for federal, that was for OSHA. Okay. With people over 100 employees. We don't have 100, we got 25. So, you go ahead, you said you had a question.
Well, I don't think we can legally do it. If we can, I'm still opposed to it.
You have your vote.
But I just want to know from our legal counsel if we can do it. Can you speak to that? Have you read all this? Cliff, can you speak to the legality of what we're doing?
Was that, I wasn't asked to look at this before, we have been kind of looking at it, and I'm not a HR guy. And I think essentially what you said a minute ago is, I don't know that anybody really knows what the law is right now.
Exactly.
Between the governor's orders and the president's orders and the court decisions and where you are in the country, it's a little bit unclear. But I have not gotten a opinion from our guys that, you know, this is their area. So I don't know that I feel comfortable saying, yeah, it's okay, or no, it's not legal stuff, but I just, you know, there's a lot of gray areas on this, and I would be happy to take this and present it to our folks that study this all the time and get you an answer, but I'm not going to the third day and give you an opinion on whether.
I think we should. I'm very uncomfortable with this. I can see down the road a lot of wrongful termination lawsuits being won by the employee.
You got somebody has to be terminated, and nobody hasn't been terminated yet. Okay.
Yeah, you know, my feeling is that we should have a policy, we should approve the policy. And when, and if something should come up, we can address it at that time, but I just think we need to have a policy in place.
And I want to, can you tell us how many housing authorities that you've told around the country? I know 3 that you've sent. San Antonio, Oklahoma, and someplace else. But I'm sure there are a number of others that have done so.
Well, you know, and again, this is based on what, this was made, as I mentioned, when I started discussing this, this is mainly based on what San Antonio is doing now.
Yeah, but how many did you reach out to and get that policy?
Very few.
Very few.
Yeah.
Okay. But I do know you did Oklahoma, San Antonio, and then I think there was another somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we send out information to THA about policies and have been asking different individuals about how they've been handling it. With, you know, like they work for Travis to others in terms of the policy. And as you alluded to, in Texas, there's been not a lot of movement per se about it. I mean, in most cases, you know, at the maximum, folks have required employees to do, to be tested and provide such. And so this only goes as far as that, as it relates to that. So that's what we come up with, I mean, in terms of recommendations.
And I'm in agreement with John. I think we have to have a policy. If something comes up, we can adjust it. We can deal with it at that particular time. But I think we need something in place for employees because we're such a small organization that just recently, a month or so ago, a couple of individuals came down with COVID. And you had, and they were in one area, and your executive director and assistants and everybody else on that wing could have been affected. And when you shut down and don't have nobody to operate, who would take over if something happened to Patrick, Omar, or Steve, or even Debbie and Robert? You know, and that's only 5 people in your organization. So you gotta protect the employees that's there. And that's all I have to say.
I wouldn't argue with you if the vaccine was proven to provide that protection. But
Well,
haven't it?
Okay, I'm ready to call for a motion. Do we have a motion?
I'll have a motion to approve.
Do we have a second? All in favor of the motion, say aye. All opposed?
No,
Agreed. We move to, item 5. Item 5.
Okay, so we're gonna have discussion about the various programs. Unfortunately, Christina and her staff is doing a mandatory training right now, but I was gonna hit some highlights as it relates to the ACD program.
This is organizational update.
Oh, I'm sorry, I went too fast, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I heard CEO and executive director. Steve, Steve, you.
Steve, thank
We're
you.
ready for 5A.
Yeah, so this was modified from last month where obviously there wasn't time to get through it. And this is just informational. First of all, the strategic plan, we're finalizing the actual final report on that. It's going to be done this week. We're working on the graphics, which is the last part of this. So expect to see that very soon. We were still working on policy manual revisions, and the Patrick and I are working closely on that. And the goal is to have that done early in Q2. We're underway with our training curriculum this year. We've already had a couple of in-house trainings. We've got one next week. Harassment, discrimination, and workplace behavior, and we're continuing full schedule through the rest of the year on that. Also working on job description revision and development. All the directors are revising job description content. I'm going to be putting all those together as I start getting those back, and I've already started getting those back. And then also working on employee development plans, which is going to be dependent partly on the job descriptions, as well as other components. And so that's going to be moving forward through the rest of 2022 on that. So any questions? Those are just kind of highlights.
Any questions?
Well, I want to ask Steve, how does this incorporate to the consultant that we did a lot of the things that she brought out? Is that in there, it incorporated in there?
That was just the strategic plan.
Yeah.
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 He's talking about the cultural acceptance survey that Laura was on. that talked about the organization and the need to have the HR person.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
all of that is, feeding into the work. we're doing.
It picked up all of those things that she pointed out.
Yes.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Move on to, section 6, item 6, CEO executive director report.
Now, so, as I just prematurely, we're doing some training right now, so, the thing I wanted to mention about the voucher program is they are, as you can see from the staff report, the utilization rate is high. The biggest thing that's been really, the primary focus is, getting the MTW, items, taken care of, to include the requirement that we reconstitute the resident advisory board, which is in the works. We're working with actually a consultant to help us sort of complete those items in the plan that Christina highlighted to you all some time ago. And we'll be continuing to move forward with that. We are also working to very deliberately on trying to address issues relative to portability, which in essence means someone bringing a voucher from another agency to our agency and us managing that and collecting those fees associated with it. And it's been quite a bear, but we've been trying to address those because there are many agencies that are not compliant and we have difficulty collecting those fees. So we're working on lastly, emergency housing voucher program, which we got 34 of those. That started moving a little bit slow in terms of really placing clients, but that's picking up. So we're hoping that will continue. So if you don't have any other questions, so that's my summary for last quarter. So what's having to do with affordable housing and Carlos is it?
Good morning, everyone. Just my summary, overall, our occupancy standing at 83.79% for all properties. Currently, we do have 21 market rate renters. We have 19 zero income renters. Currently, for Shiva Oaks, we have 10 vacant units at Eastern 10 as well. At Middletown 6, at Carson Creek, we don't have any vacancies there at this time. Currently, we do have one repayment agreement with one of our tenants. As far as our delinquency, we're working on the delinquency every single day, sending out balance to notices, calling residents, assisting them with any rental assistance agencies that are helping them out, sending them other agencies that they might not be aware of, helping with the application process as well. And we are working through our waiting list on our application, on all of our applications to fill in the vacancies for our properties. We do have an addition to our team, Brittany. She's working diligently every day, aggressively attacking these applications, making sure to have open communication with them to get these filled in as soon as possible. As far as the work orders, currently we have a total of 6 open work orders for all properties. 1 at Carson, 2 at Maynard, and then 3 at Sea Oaks Apartments. Okay, so do you guys have any questions about each one?
I appreciate the outreach and the effort to get people to address the delinquencies and to help them get what they need to address the delinquencies.
You're very welcome. We'll do that with every single one of them that we can.
Yeah, so real estate, people be.
Two departments to report on this morning. I'll be brief.
Does you have any questions? First one is Eastern Oaks. As of January 13th, 22, a notice of substantial completion was issued by the architect, signed off by the developer, or signed off by the contractor, excuse me. As of the 26th of January, a pay-app was submitted, with completion being reflected in 100%. And we are currently reviewing that pay-app. There was a scheduled final walkthrough with the architect and the contractor. It was scheduled for Monday morning. However, the contractor had a very dire illness in the family that he needed to attend. So we are rescheduling that walk, and hopefully we'll try to have it either at the beginning of this coming week or toward the end of this coming week. We haven't gotten a status update from the contractor with regard to his family member yet. There are a couple of items that are still outstanding. As a result of the walk, there was some additional railing that may need to be put up for safety reasons. And there are a couple of small additional concrete pours behind a couple of buildings. The only reason that's been delayed is because there is so much work out there that contractors are going after bigger jobs instead of wanting to come out and make a couple of pours behind a couple of duplexes. But the contractor is diligently pursuing that and getting contractors lined up for it. Other than that, the property looks very good. The drainage input is working. The fencing is complete. The new sign is up. And while we're still working through a little bit of bugs that you have normally with new construction, primarily appliances, people seem to be very happy at the units once they're reoccupied. And also any items that came out of the HUD inspection are being addressed by the contractor as well as part of his plan. Any questions on Eastern? All right, quickly moving on to Maynard Town Apartments Phase 2. As you know, we had a notice of equipment proposals put out back in January, approximately December. We received 2 responses to that. I have reviewed the responses as well as executive management, and I have submitted an executive summary and a recommendation to executive management with regard to the information provided by both contractors as well as the final bid. And based on that information and history, the history and experience of the 2 developers, I made a recommendation to him as to who I thought we should go with. And at this time, a final decision has not been made, but Patrick and I visited about this yesterday, and there is some additional information that we wanted to discuss. And once I know what that is, I'll be able to provide it to him and give it to him. What's the difference in what kind of price range is? We had one bid for 3.7 million, and we had one bid for 5.1 million. It's a big difference. Yes, sir, it is. And I provided a cost breakdown based on per unit and per square foot of the key cost components in the bids, and submitted that for review and the recommendation as well.
So I just wanted to add, so where we are with TDHCA, as you recall, we went back and asked for additional funds, 431,000. What we're hoping to do, and as I understand it as of yesterday, it is in underwriting to be completed so that we can get that commitment. We're hoping to get that done before tax credit season starts in March, because once that happens, we'll get put to the back burner and it won't come out until sometime in August. So let's keep our fingers crossed and that it comes out sooner than later.
That's it for me. A little bit of finance.
With C-Rad Oaks and that's already,
Cigarette Oaks is completed. Any items having to do with that are restricted property management at this point.
So jumping ahead, good afternoon. So what's included in the board packet is the financials for period ending December 31st. Our fiscal year ended December 31st. This was a 18-month fiscal year. So the financials shown here are preliminary because we are still closing the books and I'm still accruing expenses. So some of the information would have changed from the time I put this thing together. So I really didn't have anything to, I'll just brief by exception. The audit is scheduled for HATC is scheduled for the end of the month. So we're just working on getting the books closed and submitting financials.
Is the preliminary analysis showing anything that surprises you? Did the preliminary analysis of the 18-month fiscal year show you anything that surprised you? Were you concerned or surprised about anything?
No, not particularly. We did make there was a little bit of a surplus in the HCV program because we received those COVID funds for COVID administrative fee, and that we used towards paying salaries for the Section 8 staff. But we also had quite a big significant write-off for the portability that we were not able to collect, or we were kind of delinquent. So that's why the focus now is to go back and try to see if we can collect some of those monies from the other housing authorities. So, I wrote off anything over 90 days. I wrote off, balances. So I wrote off $107,000, so the surplus would have been $180,000 if not for the write-off. But we are trying to work to getting this collected. And Patrick, last week we talked to the HUD director at San Antonio, and he's going to help us to try to collect it from.
Can you explain that a little bit? Why would other housing authorities owe us money?
It's all right. You want to explain that?
I had
Because
that explained about 5 years ago.
because a tenant living in San Antonio's Section 8 program can move to Austin and their voucher is portable. So we have to accept them. And they are not in our voucher program. They are still in the San Antonio voucher program. So we would bill the San Antonio Housing Authority. We would pay the rent to the landlord, and then we would bill the other housing authority. This is the rent here, please pay us.
Because they already received the money.
Yeah, they receive the money.
I would be hesitant to pay it.
You said why?
Well, it works both ways, right? If someone from here moves there, we're not gonna pay it.
Yeah, it could be that.
That could happen, yeah. I mean,
No,
so
I don't know.
there some agencies understand like there's something about, after 2 years or so, it becomes problematic, difficult to collect the funds, and some agencies just aren't responsive. They just don't pay. And what they suggest we do is absorb those, which means when we get an available voucher, instead of trying to continue to bill other agencies, we accept them as our own, because it's such a difficult thing to collect the fees. And honestly, to be honest, I mean, quite frankly, it's problematic with the program in general, just because agencies do this all the time, just don't pay. It's very hard to collect. HUD doesn't like to be involved with the process. They want agencies to work it out themselves. But it's just not good for us.
We don't give away our voucher.
Well, when you say, I'm saying like, instead of say the person from San Antonio moved here, we have a hard time collecting the fees.
Right.
So we might get an available voucher because someone, it's someone was moved, so we have a voucher. We will, when we say absorb them, we just make them our own, but they become one of our resident participants versus a San Antonio port in, as they call it. So that we don't have to go through the trouble of trying to collect those fees.
Right, so in effect, somebody reports in and then we absorb the voucher, they basically jumped our line.
That is correct.
Yeah.
But that's what they recommend you to do.
No, I
mean,
know,
is
I
that-
know, but I'm just making. it
Yeah, they will
clear in our
recommend
mind.
you, I mean, it's kind of broken, right, the system, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because there are people waiting, but that's essentially what they encourage you to do when you have these issues, is to try to absorb them. So. Not a good,
It's
a
not-
fail-
it's
it's a
not
flawed
a good
system
issue
to
at
me,
all.
in the way it works, and it's problematic because the agencies are left with trying to collect the funds. I mean, and we've even explored like collection, but it's really, it's not as straightforward as it sounds, where another housing authority is, suing or trying to collect from another, one against the other, and it's not, there's no real precedent for that, so I mean, it's just.
Patrick, with NARA, what are they doing? These old rules have been around for a long time. What's the possibility of getting some of this stuff updated and changed to the 22nd century?
I don't know. I mean, I might want to talk to Ms. Fudge. I don't know if she can take my call, but it's, some things are changing. I mean, MTW will give us some flexibility. I mean, they created some additional voucher program, but there are age-old problems that still exist. They have been contemplated for a few years what they're calling like a universal voucher program, which would maybe address some of what we have, as far as these issues. But, it's the government is a system and it moves very slowly with these sorts of things. So it's an ongoing problem. Again, agencies typically they'll absorb folks when they can because it's easier not to try to deal with collecting.
Now, if we keep the vouchers and keep the money, then they'll certainly want to either kick that person out or something else,
Well, I mean, we're required to accept them if they put in. I mean, if they have a legitimate voucher, I mean, that's the way the program works. You have to accept them if they move into your community, and you're required to actually administer the program. So, but again, we could absorb, and that's unfortunately pushes people on the waiting list back. But you have not collecting the fees causes the agency to not be, in the black as opposed to in the red. So you have to make decisions about that. So it's quite a balancing act. So.
Next time when we go to, we may be visiting with Ms. Third. That's the thing to do. This is really, thank you.
So I had a question with regard to financials, and I just need some clarity. So with regard to Eastern Oaks, we had a accounts receivable close to $120,000. And I think the last couple of months, we've been setting aside money because it's showing a negative balance there. And then this time it's just showing $20,000. Now, I'm going to be positive and say that must mean we've collected the money, and therefore that's a good thing, or we're doing something else with it. I'm not sure really what that was.
We have to write it off because I did not accept the vouchers through the end of August. The subsidy, they did not give us any subsidy through the end of August. So you'll see on the financials, I had to write it off. And so Easton had a deficit, so I transferred a contribution from business activities.
Actually, that was gonna be my next question. I'm
Mhm.
surprised you looked at.
Yeah.
Because I've been bugging you about the
Yeah.
collectibles from the government. Why couldn't they just tell us we're not gonna pay?
Right, so that's correct. So this is more of a carryover from previous, as far as Eastern Oaks. The residents got relocated prematurely and it wasn't done in the appropriate fashion. And so we've been trying to go back and fix that as it relates to having an approved relocation plan. So the residents the intention was for us to sign a master lease so that the residents won't be in two leases because they obviously are our tenants and lease arrangement with us. But then for that period they were out, they were also signed a lease with the developments, which were tax credit developments, which they were required to because had to qualify. So in light of that, we were trying to go back and rectify the situation as related to the ability to try to recoup those funds because we've been discussing this with them for several months now. They've assigned technical assistance to us via TCF, I think, consulting, to help us try to figure out how we could address the situation. But at year end, we didn't, it's still pending and we're still trying to figure out a way to recoup those funds because their initial answer was, no, we will not recoup those funds. But we're still working on it. And that's where we are.
Well, I'm still not clear. Was that our fault that we?
Yes, it
didn't
was.
Do it properly?
Yes.
What, do you know why that happened or was everything in place? Not to
Sure.
do that
When
again?
Barry was here, we didn't submit a relocation plan in a timely fashion and the leases were done incorrectly. They were in two leases. There was supposed to be a pass-through lease, which means that we sign a master lease so that the tenants are in two leases but they were. And they weren't supposed to be.
We
That's
know
all
that
I-
since Barry was here for a long time.
I know it's been a long time since we relocated. We started relocating folks January of 2020. And most of them are out by, I guess, July, because construction started around August of 2020. So we started like late January of 2020. And of course, obviously things are just taking a little while. So yes, I mean, that's exactly what happened.
And we wrote off about 100,000.
70,000, so I had to write off 70,000.
There's still more on the books that we may not pay.
No, I think it's because we are so far behind on the vouchering. They said we are not going to pay. Right now, we are just 3 months behind on Easton. So
I'm still trying. I'm not getting this whole picture. It's
We're
very
behind
screwed up
me.
the first time.
We're behind because we're still trying to rectify the situation with the vouchers in terms of, again, submitting the vouchers in a timely fashion. And then we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to still collect where we are. So, I mean, we're always a month behind the vouchers. So 3 months is not a substantial amount as it relates to that. I mean, it sounds worse than it is, but you're always at least 30 to 45 days behind in terms of the voucher. So we're just a little delayed in that regard. But again, we're still trying to recoup the funds. We may not, but a mistake was made and we've been begging for them to allow us to do such because they didn't get done correctly. And we did, confer with the HUD office, but they're claiming that we didn't follow their guidance as it relates to what they did. So they're holding the funds hostage and they're hoping we can still, to get that money back.
I mean, the same thing with other projects.
No, not as it relates to, not in this fashion. I mean, the vouchering in general, we're still trying to rectify. And there is glitch with the software. I know I brought this up before. there hasn't been, we've been still trying to work with the current software provider because we have, because the difficulty in transitioning to new software, although you all were on board with the idea of exploring that, is problematic in the sense of trying to recoup the funds as opposed to what we might do going forward. So we've been trying to resolve that issue before we even explore the option of changing the software. So it's just taking a while because what we have is not necessarily conducive for what, particularly when it comes to payments that are in arrears.
And I think that's what I was talking about, moving into the 21st and 22nd century. If each voucher is numbered and you operating on a computer or whatever, you plug that number in and wherever that number goes, it should override it. If you're receiving that voucher, if it's coming from going to San Antonio, that same number could be used. That's the point I'm in. The system is not updated enough, and it's something that is happening, and that's the reason why going to these organizations like NAR, when they go to Washington, going and meeting with the legislators, you can tell them about some of these issues, and even writing letters to Marshall Fudge.
But you're not saying that we couldn't collect money without a new computer.
Well, I think the current system is this antiquated.
No, I understand that. 70,000 totally process. My point is, you can still collect money the old way, you don't have to have a computer.
Yeah, so I appreciate the update and I appreciate getting some detail about it, but I have to say that I think it's inappropriate for staff members to raise that question here on the board. I would have expected that you all would have the organized within yourselves in such a way that you would not need to ask that question here.
I was gonna ask it to him.
Okay, but so the other thing that I would like to add to that is that I think what would help is for us to, and maybe you all met this month, but I would like to start doing governance committee and real estate committee meetings again, because that's another thing for questions to come up rather than in this setting.
I have a similar question with regard to CRAD Oaks or
Well, that's
LP.
something that you should address, I think, Robert, with the director and your meeting. That's what you just pointed out.
Wait a minute, are you
Not
saying
bring it before, he shouldn't be bringing that before the board.
You don't
Okay,
think the board should know about this thing?
well,
I've been talking about that collectible from the government for what?
No, I know that, but it's just, it has the appearance of fairy tale.
The thing that I'm concerned about is, especially with the LP, where we have a loan in place, and I need to ask the question because it's been carried on the books as account receivable for $241,000, which represents a year of subsidy with HUD.
Well, you're gonna bring it up anyway when we ask you to take it to the director and the finance.
And the 74,000 that was accounts
Okay.
receivable from the
Let's
tenant.
move on.
The issue now
You're
is
out of order. You're out of order and it's
you're in
insubordination.
default of your loan.
It's
I just want you to be
insubordination.
aware of that.
It's insubordination.
He's
And you
trying
need
to-
to make a note of that, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. When you tell somebody to stop and they don't stop, then that's out of order.
I do want to get it on record.
Take
Thank you.
it part of your next.
It'll be,
Let's
it'll be also part of his next evaluation too.
Great.
reinvigorate the committee structure.
It is.
Let's
You know,
reinvigorate the committee structure, so these things can come up in a less formal setting.
I think we're ready
Okay.
to move on. What? Yeah, thank you.
Hey, I thought we were all on the same team here, but we can't do it.
We need to move on.
It'll be on the top people in the-
Where are we on this? Patrick, what?
We're on E,
Okay.
item E, 6E.
The foundation.
Okay.
Hopefully it's
Eric.
non-controversial.
All right, good morning, everyone. So over the past month, we've been doing extensive work with Austin Public Library beginning to implement the funding they received from the American Rescue Plan Act. The centerpiece of that will be their digital literacy courses, which we've been surveying residents over the past few weeks. We've already gotten 20 to 25 both housing voucher clients and affordable housing residents enrolled in these courses, which will be starting in late February. The plan for the time being is during the week, these courses will be taught one-on-one at 6 different Austin Public Library branches, all within the Eastern Crescent. We'll also be bringing them on site to the community rooms of Alexander and Eastern Oaks twice a month. We've been sort of collecting information on the barriers residents face to digital connection. Around half of the residents we surveyed, both HCV and affordable housing residents, do not have a steady Wi-Fi connection at home. So we are working with Austin Public Library staff to provide hotspots and rental technology as needed. But we've gotten a great deal of interest in job searching courses, connecting with health services and community resources, and obtaining different job certificates within these digital literacy programs. So those will be starting up virtually at the end of this month, and depending on public library protocol related to COVID-19, we will start those in person as soon as we can. But we will have what we're going to be calling Library Saturdays on last Saturday of the month at Alexander Oaks and first Saturday of the month at Eastern Oaks, where library staff will be on hand all day to help residents with what they need. Through this partnership, we've also been able to for some other partnerships with some of the other agencies that are working on this. We're now working with Travis County Coming of Age, who some of you may be familiar with. We're getting residents enrolled in fall prevention courses that are happening right now, and also chronic pain management courses, diabetes management courses, chronic disease management courses, all accessible via Zoom. As part of this, also we'll be helping residents interested in those kinds of courses get the technology they need to access them. We've also been heavily invested in our workforce development efforts. As you know, we've got our AmeriCorps volunteer job coach here at HATC. We've reached out to representatives of a collaborative effort between Austin Community College and Tesla regarding the it's called the Start Manufacturing Program, which is a 14-week intensive training program that prepares participants for employment at Tesla. These trainees are paid during this 14-week period while they're being trained, and then are immediately placed in manufacturing positions. So we've been working with our volunteer job coach to identify residents and HCB clients that would be interested in that. We've already gotten a few who have indicated that they would like more information on that, so we'll be doing further outreach regarding that. We've got more outreach regarding solar panel training and other industrial trade programs that should produce some good results in the coming months.
Very impressive. Thank you.
Eric, are you aware that Tesla is doing outreach efforts throughout the area for employees and et cetera? And some of those jobs are paying good money. They're like $2,500, and they're reaching out to the community. So if you can put them or someone on your shoot people over there, that would be a great opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. We're really keeping up with what's going on with Tesla right now. We are implementing a lot of programs. So yes, we are keeping up with that. programs for as many directions as possible.
And if you can help them throw out applications. That'd be good. Thank you.
Yes, yes, we will be doing that.
Thank you. We go to F, human resources.
Yeah, so we had these as an independent item too, so I don't think that there's a address here to see. We had it as a separate agenda item as well, so we'll move on.
Board committee report. First of all, we don't have any committees and in my feeling, I don't think you really need to commit, so they come up with review appointment. Looks like they're very close. But I think what we should do, we're a committee of, I suppose we a committee of the whole. If you or Robert or someone needs to commit a committee, just call a committee of all of us and we'll let you know we can do that. Yeah, post it. So
Yeah,
we'll be a
there
committee
is,
of the whole.
yeah, there is a need for the real estate committee to meet. Currently, it's yourself and Mr. Karam. So we will sort of make contact with you all about meeting in the future.
So we can do it. We don't have any. Andy, you or unfinished business?
So I can just make folks aware of the fact that the Commissioners Court did meet on yesterday. And they've had a combination of 6 applicants for both the housing authority and strategic. And the application is still joint. Although you can elect to be considered for one or both. I think 4 of the 6 would want to be considered for both the housing authority and strategic. My understanding is that in the next few weeks they'll be working on doing those interviews with the intent of appointing folks to those vacant positions, within that period of time.
Thank you.
With those 2 individuals, they say they've already been appointed. Is that?
Yeah, so you're talking about strategic.
They're under consideration, so there's conflicting information.
Okay, so what I meant was the non-resident commissioners or directors. 2 weeks ago, there was, so this is more strategic, but let's go ahead and tell you. 2 weeks ago, 2 tenant representatives were selected for with the assumption that the strategic board will approve bylaw changes to add 2 tenant members. So pending that change, which I was recommending at the strategic meeting, we happened in March, and also the Commissioners Court did pass a resolution yesterday suggesting that we do that very same thing, that in March we change our amended bylaws, so it's consistent with that. So yes, 2 tenant board members have been selected. Obviously, it's pending the change in the bylaws for them to be officially appointed to the board of strategic housing finance corporation. What I was speaking to was the non-tenant members, and there's 6 of those that are being considered for those vacancies. 3 really, technically, I mean 2 for strategic, 1 for the housing. Possibly 2. That's it.
There's no need for an executive session, and is there a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're done.